Out of my way! General William Hayes shoved past Keisha Washington like she was furniture. Her files exploded across the Pentagon floor. 20 officers watched in stunned silence. Hayes slammed a classified document on the conference table. His face was red with rage. 3 hours until the massacre. Nobody can crack this African gibberish. He looked down at Keisha crawling to collect her papers. A cruel smile spread across his face. Wait, you people probably speak this monkey language, don't you? Gasps echoed through the room. Even hardened officers looked horrified. Hayes kicked the document at her face. Get on your knees and read this to me like a good little native. Translate this. My rank is yours. The room erupted in shocked laughter and whispers. Some officers turned away in disgust. Keisha stood slowly. Blood trickled from her split lip. She looked directly at Hayes with deadly calm. I'll translate your document, sir. Have you ever been challenged by someone who had no idea who they were really talking to? Keisha wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand. The room held its breath. General Hayes threw himself into his chair, still seething. Clock's ticking, sweetheart. 200 peacekeepers are about to die because of your people's tribal wars. The document lay crumpled on the floor where he'd kicked it. Keisha bent down and smoothed it carefully. Her hands didn't shake. Sir, this isn't what you think it is. Hayes barked a laugh. Oh, the native's going to educate me now. Intelligence Officer Martinez leaned forward nervously. General, the document was intercepted 4 hours ago from a rebel faction in Sierra Leone. Our best linguists from 3 departments couldn't decode it. Because they're not African, Hayes sneered, gesturing at Keisha like she was evidence of his point. Keisha studied the document silently. Her eyes moved across the handwritten text with growing recognition. The dialect was Creole mixed with Mende, but more than that, she knew this handwriting. The countdown timer showed 3 hours, 22 minutes. General, she said quietly, this isn't a threat to the peacekeepers. Bullshit. Intelligence says it's a terror plot. Keisha's voice grew stronger. This is a warning. Someone is trying to save those peacekeepers' lives. The room erupted in skeptical murmurs. Hayes slammed his fist on the table. You've been staring at that paper for 2 minutes. You expect me to believe you can read something our experts couldn't? The peacekeepers aren't in danger from rebels, sir. They're walking into an ambush set by government forces using American weapons. Dead silence. Martinez pulled up satellite imagery on the main screen. That's impossible. Our intelligence clearly shows... Your intelligence is wrong. Keisha's voice cut through the room like a blade. This document gives specific coordinates where the real attack will happen. It's not where your satellites are watching. Hayes stood slowly, his face darkening. Who the hell do you think you are? Keisha looked him straight in the eye. She took a deep breath. Before I translate the rest of this, General, there's something you should know about that rank you just offered me. The silence in the room was deafening. Every eye was on Keisha. General Hayes crossed his arms. What could you possibly tell me about rank, girl? Keisha set the document on the table with deliberate care. Her voice was steady, professional. This warning was written by Captain Fode Sanko, Jr. He's trying to prevent a massacre, not cause one. Officer Martinez frantically typed on his keyboard. Ma'am, there's no Captain Sanko in our intelligence database. Because he's not in your system, Keisha replied calmly. He's a former Sierra Leone Army officer who went underground after the Civil War. I know his handwriting because I worked with him for 3 years. Hayes stepped closer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Worked with him? What, cleaning his floors? No, sir. Planning counterinsurgency operations. The room shifted uncomfortably. Several officers leaned forward. Keisha pointed to specific passages in the document. These aren't random tribal markings. They're military grid coordinates disguised as traditional proverbs. Captain Sanko is warning that government forces plan to ambush the peacekeepers at dawn prayers, 0600 hours local time. She traced her finger across the text. This phrase here, when the cola nut meets the palm wine, refers to a specific geographic location. There's a village called Kolanut Junction, 15 kilometers north of where your satellites are currently focused. Martinez's fingers flew across his keyboard. I'm pulling up satellite imagery of that area now. You won't see anything yet, Keisha continued. The ambush force moves at night, But if you check the imagery from 2400 hours tonight, you'll see vehicle movement consistent with a battalion-sized element. General Hayes's face was reddening again. You expect me to believe some contractor knows more about Sierra Leone than Pentagon intelligence? Keisha stood up straighter. The blood on her lip had dried into a thin line. General, when you said my rank is yours if I could translate this... She paused, meeting his glare without flinching. I need to tell you something about that offer. Get to the point. I already had one. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Had what? Hayes demanded. A rank. Keisha's voice grew stronger with each word. Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army Intelligence, retired. The room exploded in shocked whispers. Martinez nearly knocked over his coffee cup. 2 junior officers actually gasped out loud. Hayes stared at her like she'd grown a second head. That's impossible. 12 years active duty, 3 deployments to West Africa. I ran intelligence operations in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea-Bissau from 2006 to 2018. She gestured to the document. I know Captain Sanko because I recruited him as an asset in 2009. I trained him. I know his handwriting because I've read hundreds of his intelligence reports. Officer Martinez found his voice. Ma'am, if that's true, why are you working as a contractor? Because, Captain, Keisha said, her eyes never leaving Hayes. Sometimes having rank isn't enough to save the people you're supposed to protect. The countdown timer showed 2 hours, 58 minutes. Hayes's jaw worked silently. The room was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system humming. Finally, he spoke through gritted teeth. Prove it. Keisha pulled out her phone and dialed a number from memory. She put it on speaker. Sanko. Captain, this is Phoenix. Authentication code Green Lion 7. A pause. Then excitement in the voice. Phoenix, sister, where have you been? Are you seeing my warning about the peacekeepers? Every officer in the room leaned closer to hear. I'm seeing it, Captain. How much time do we have? They moved the attack force at midnight. Government forces, not rebels. They want to blame us for killing Americans. Hayes grabbed the phone. This is General Hayes, United States Army. Who is this? General, this is Captain Sanko. The woman you are speaking to saved my village in 2009. You should listen to her very carefully. Hayes slowly handed the phone back to Keisha. His face had gone pale. Captain, I need you to send updated coordinates to these Pentagon frequencies. She rattled off a series of numbers from memory. Already transmitting, Phoenix. Be safe, sister. The line went dead. Keisha looked around the room. 23 officers stared back at her with a mixture of shock and newfound respect. So, General, she said quietly, about that rank you offered. General Hayes sank into his chair like a deflated balloon. The arrogance had drained from his face, replaced by something that looked like shame. Lieutenant Colonel, he said quietly. Jesus Christ. Keisha remained standing. Her posture had transformed completely, shoulders back, chin up. The submissive contractor was gone. In her place stood a career military officer. I grew up in Freetown, Sierra Leone, she began, her voice steady and professional. My father was a U.S. diplomat. When the Civil War exploded in 1997, I watched government soldiers massacre an entire village while we waited for evacuation. The room was completely silent. Even the keyboard clicking had stopped. I was 16. I promised myself I'd come back with enough authority to prevent it from happening again. Officer Martinez leaned forward. That's why you joined the Army? West Point, class of 2002. Top of my class, in languages and cultural intelligence. The Army sent me back to Sierra Leone in 2006 as a lieutenant. I thought my rank would be enough to save lives. Her voice grew quieter, more painful. In 2009, I was a lieutenant colonel running intelligence operations across 3 countries. I had all the authority anyone could want. Satellites, resources, respect. She looked directly at Hayes. I also had to watch another village get slaughtered because Washington prioritized American interests over African lives. The massacre at Koidu, whispered Martinez. I remember reading about that. Keisha nodded grimly. 47 people died while I sat in a command center, arguing with politicians about rules of engagement. I had the intelligence to stop it. I had the rank to authorize action. But I didn't have the power to override politics. Hayes's voice was barely audible. So you left. I retired at 31. I took this contractor job because I could still use my skills without carrying the weight of command decisions. She touched her lip where the blood had dried. Without anyone expecting me to save lives I couldn't save. But why hide it? Martinez asked. Why not tell people who you really are? Keisha's eyes darkened. Because every time someone offers me authority, like your general just did, it reminds me of all the times that authority failed when people needed it most. The countdown timer showed 2 hours, 41 minutes. Hayes cleared his throat. Colonel Washington, It's just Keisha now, sir. The rank didn't protect anyone. Maybe it's better this way. An intelligence alert chimed on Martinez's computer. Satellite imagery was coming in from Colanut Junction. Ma'am, Martinez said urgently, you need to see this. The satellite imagery filled the main screen. Even at night vision resolution, the movement was unmistakable. Vehicles, personnel, weapons positioning. Battalion strength force, Martinez breathed. Exactly where she said they'd be. General Hayes stared at the screen, then at Keisha. The transformation in his demeanor was complete. Colonel, Keisha, what do you need? Direct communication with Peacekeeping Command, and someone needs to contact Captain Sanko immediately. Hayes nodded to Martinez. Make it happen. Within minutes, multiple screens showed video feeds from UN headquarters in New York, peacekeeping forces in Sierra Leone, and a secure satellite phone connection. This is Colonel Morrison, UN Peacekeeping Command, came a voice through the speakers. We show our forces in safe positions. Keisha stepped forward. Colonel Morrison, this is Keisha Washington, former U.S. Army intelligence. Your forces are walking into a government ambush in approximately 7 hours. Ma'am, with respect, our intelligence shows rebel threats, not government forces. Your intelligence is wrong. Keisha's voice carried absolute authority. I need you to redirect Alpha and Bravo companies immediately. A new voice crackled through the radio. Captain Sanko in the field. Phoenix, government forces are moving heavy weapons into position. They have American equipment. Hayes leaned toward the microphone. Captain, this is General Hayes. What kind of American equipment? M240 machine guns, M4 rifles, and at least 2 Humvees. Someone is supplying your weapons to people who want to kill your allies. The room fell silent. This wasn't just about saving peacekeepers anymore. Martinez pulled up weapons tracking data. Sir, we did have some equipment go missing from a joint training exercise 6 months ago. Missing, Keisha said grimly. Or stolen by people we were supposed to trust. Colonel Morrison's voice came through again, tense. Miss Washington, if we redirect our forces based on your intelligence and you're wrong, then you can blame me, Keisha interrupted. But if you don't redirect them and I'm right, you'll be explaining to 200 families why their sons and daughters died because you wouldn't listen to a former Army intelligence officer. Hayes stepped closer to the microphone. Colonel Morrison, I'm taking my career on this woman's assessment. Move your people. Sir, with respect, who is this woman? Why should I trust? Because, Hayes said slowly, she just solved an intelligence problem that stumped my entire staff, and because I offered her my rank if she could translate that document. Turns out she already outranked half the people in this room. A long pause. Copy that. Alpha and Bravo companies are redirecting to alternate positions. Keisha moved to the communications station. Captain Sanko, we need real-time intelligence on the ambush force. Can you get closer without being detected? Already moving, Phoenix. They have no idea what we're watching. The countdown timer showed 2 hours, 19 minutes. Hayes watched Keisha coordinate the operation with natural command presence. She wasn't asking permission anymore. She was giving orders, and people were following them. Martinez, she called out. I need satellite surveillance on 3 specific grid coordinates. She rattled off numbers from memory. Government forces will stage from these positions. How do you know that? Martinez asked as he programmed the satellites. Because I helped design the tactical doctrine they're using. We trained them to fight rebels, not Americans. They're using our own manual against us. Hayes felt sick. We created this problem. Yes, sir, but now we're going to solve it. Keisha looked at him directly. What rank did you offer me? Right now I'm going to act like I actually have it. The next morning's briefing room buzzed with tension. Word had spread throughout the Pentagon about the successful operation. 200 peacekeepers were alive because of Keisha's intelligence. But not everyone was celebrating. Colonel James Peterson sat at the head of the conference table, his silver hair perfectly groomed, his uniform crisp. 25 years of military service had earned him respect and a corner office. He did not appreciate being upstaged by a contractor. "Let's be clear about what happened yesterday," Peterson began, his voice carrying the authority of rank and tradition. "A civilian contractor bypassed the proper chain of command and potentially compromised national security protocols." General Hayes shifted uncomfortably. "Colonel, she saved 200 lives. Did she, or did she get lucky with a guess?" Peterson's eyes were cold. How do we know this woman isn't a security risk herself? She claims to have inside knowledge of Sierra Leone operations. How do we verify her true loyalties?" Murmurs rippled through the room. Several officers nodded thoughtfully. "What are you suggesting?" Hayes asked. "I'm suggesting that someone who abandons her military career under mysterious circumstances, then hides her background while working in classified environments, raises serious questions." Peterson opened a file folder. Questions about mental stability. Questions about why she really left the Army. Questions about her connections to foreign nationals. Keisha sat in the back corner watching the institutional machinery turn against her. She'd seen this before, the coded language, the raised eyebrows, the careful phrasing that destroyed careers without ever mentioning race or gender. Her intelligence proved accurate, Martinez offered weakly. "This time," Peterson snapped. "But what about next time? How do we know her foreign contacts aren't feeding her information to manipulate American policy? She spoke to Captain Sanko like an old friend. How do we know she's not compromised?" The room grew uncomfortable. Officers who had been impressed yesterday now looked uncertain. "Furthermore," Peterson continued, "General Hayes made an inappropriate promise about rank yesterday. Comments like, 'My rank is yours,' to unvetted personnel set dangerous precedents. What's next? Are we giving command authority to janitors and cafeteria workers?" Harsh laughter echoed from several officers. The mood was shifting. Hayes felt the political ground shifting beneath him. His superiors had already called twice asking about irregularities in yesterday's operation. "Colonel Peterson," he said carefully, "what do you recommend?" "Full security review, suspension of her contractor status pending investigation, and a formal reprimand for any officer who failed to follow proper protocols." His eyes locked on Hayes. Keisha stood up slowly. Every head turned toward her. "Colonel Peterson," she said, her voice cutting through the tension, "you want to know about my loyalties?" "I want to know why someone with your alleged background would hide among support staff. Normal people don't abandon successful military careers to become contractors. Normal people haven't watched children burn alive while politicians debate rules of engagement." The room went dead silent. Peterson's face hardened. "That kind of emotional instability is exactly what concerns me. Maybe we should stick to analysts who understand American interests instead of someone who might have divided loyalties." Keisha walked slowly toward the front of the room. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. "Colonel Peterson, you've spent 25 years behind desks in Virginia. I've spent 12 years bleeding for American interests in places you can't pronounce. General Hayes offered me his rank yesterday because I delivered intelligence that saved American allies. The question isn't whether I'm loyal to America." She stopped directly in front of his chair. "The question is whether you're brave enough to use the best intelligence available, or if you'd rather let people die than admit a black woman knows more than you do." 3 weeks later, the consequences of institutional prejudice played out in real time across multiple crisis centers. "Sir, we've lost contact with Embassy Team Alpha in Ghana." The intelligence analyst's voice cracked with stress. "Last transmission indicated they were approaching what they believed was a refugee camp." General Hayes rubbed his temples. Without Keisha's cultural intelligence, the Pentagon had reverted to standard protocols. 3 separate West African crises were spiraling out of control. What did our translators say about the intercepted communications? They interpreted Brotherhood Gathering as a potential terrorist meeting. Embassy security moved to investigate. Hayes closed his eyes. He knew what Keisha would have told them. Brotherhood Gathering in that regional dialect meant a reconciliation ceremony between feuding tribes. A peaceful event. Casualties? 12 Americans evacuated under hostile fire. The terrorists were actually tribal elders trying to make peace. Our interference destroyed 6 months of diplomatic progress. On another screen, satellite imagery showed the disaster in Mali. Pentagon linguists had misinterpreted Market Day announcements as coded military communications. A joint special operations raid had targeted a children's school. International fallout? Hayes asked, though he already knew. France is questioning our competence in African operations. Britain is considering excluding us from regional security cooperation. The African Union issued a formal complaint about American cultural blindness. Martinez looked up from his workstation. Sir, field commanders are specifically requesting the contractor who helped with Sierra Leone. They're asking for the woman General Hayes trusted with his rank. The irony burned. Colonel Peterson's security review had effectively sidelined Keisha. She still worked in the building, but had been reassigned to basic document filing. No access to classified intelligence, no authority to advise on operations. Cost assessment? Hayes asked grimly. $50 million in misdirected resources, 6 diplomatic relationships strained, and 3 ongoing operations are failing because we can't properly interpret cultural context. Ambassador Sarah Carter's voice crackled through the secure video link from Ghana. General Hayes, we desperately need someone who understands not just the language but the cultural subtext. Our standard translators are missing critical nuances that could prevent this situation from escalating. Hayes stared at the multiple crisis feeds. American credibility was crumbling across an entire continent because they'd chosen institutional comfort over operational excellence. His secure phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Congress. General Hayes, this is Congressman Williams, House Intelligence Committee. We're getting reports about significant intelligence failures in Africa, something about cultural misunderstandings. Yes, sir. We're addressing the situation. Address it faster. CNN is running a story tomorrow about American forces raiding a school because we couldn't tell the difference between a terrorist plot and a bake sale. Hayes hung up and looked around the crisis center. 20 of the Pentagon's best intelligence officers were failing at problems Keisha could have solved in minutes. Sir, Martinez said quietly, maybe we should reconsider the contractor situation. Colonel Peterson made it clear that would be career suicide for anyone involved. With respect, sir, our careers might not matter if we can't figure out how to operate in Africa without starting international incidents. The main screen showed breaking news. U.S. military intelligence failures spark African Union criticism. Hayes watched his professional reputation disintegrate in real time. The woman he'd offered his rank to in condescension was watching from a basement office, filing papers while American interests collapsed around them. His phone buzzed again. This time it was the Secretary of Defense. Hayes, my office, now! And bring whoever was responsible for the Sierra Leone success. We need to fix this disaster before Congress decides to fix it for us. Hayes looked toward the basement stairs. Time to admit that institutional prejudice had cost American lives, credibility, and millions of dollars. Time to go ask for help from the woman they'd tried to silence. General Hayes stood outside Keisha's apartment at 9 p.m. No aide, no protocol, no rank insignia visible on his civilian jacket. Just a man who had made a terrible mistake. Keisha opened the door, unsurprised. She'd been expecting this conversation for 3 weeks. General, Keisha. He looked older, worn down. May I come in? Her apartment was modest but comfortable. Language textbooks covered every surface. A small framed photo showed her in an army dress uniform receiving a commendation. When I said, translate this, my rank is yours, I thought I was being generous. Hayes sat heavily on her couch. I thought I was making a joke about giving authority to someone who didn't deserve it. Keisha poured 2 cups of coffee. Her movements were calm, deliberate. I was wrong about everything. His voice cracked slightly. You didn't just deserve my rank. You were already more qualified for my position than I was. General, let me finish. He looked directly at her. I let institutional prejudice override operational necessity. I let Colonel Peterson silence the best intelligence asset we had because it was politically easier than defending you. Keisha sat across from him. And now? Now 12 Americans nearly died because our translators couldn't tell the difference between a peace ceremony and a terrorist meeting. Now Congress is demanding hearings about our African intelligence failures. Now our allies question whether we're competent to operate on an entire continent. Hayes pulled out an official document. This is a formal offer. Senior Cultural Intelligence Advisor, direct report to the Joint Chiefs. Security clearance higher than mine. Authority to override any intelligence assessment in your area of expertise. What about Colonel Peterson? Colonel Peterson has been reassigned to a desk job in Nebraska. Hayes almost smiled. The Secretary of Defense made it clear that officers who can't recognize talent shouldn't be in positions to waste it. Keisha read the document carefully. The position description was impressive. Real authority, real resources, real respect. There's more, Hayes continued. We're creating an entire cultural intelligence division. Pentagon-wide policy change. Every international operation must include cultural analysis. You'd be the director. Why now? Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Because 3 weeks ago, I offered you my rank as an insult. Today, I'm offering you a position that outranks me because it's what you should have had all along. And if I say no, then America continues failing at cultural intelligence, and people die because we're too proud to learn from our mistakes. He met her eyes. But I hope you'll say yes, not for me. Not for all the villages we can save if we finally start listening to people who actually understand the world. Keisha set down the document. General, when you offered me your rank, it hurt because I'd already earned respect that no one bothered to see. I see it now. Good. Because I'm not taking this position to prove anything to you or anyone else. I'm taking it because there are people out there who need someone who understands that authority should be used to protect, not to dominate. Hayes nodded. When can you start? I never stopped working, General. I just stopped being allowed to do my job. She signed the document. Now I can do it properly. Pentagon cafeteria, 11 p.m. Most of the building was empty except for security and night shift personnel. General Hayes found Keisha at a corner table surrounded by intelligence files and a half-eaten sandwich. Mind if I join you? She gestured to the empty chair. No formality between them now, just two professionals trying to prevent disasters. You know, Hayes said, stirring his coffee, when I said my rank is yours, I was being an ass. Keisha looked up from her files. Yes, you were. I grew up poor in Alabama, the only black family in my high school. I joined the military thinking a uniform would prove I belonged somewhere. He shook his head. Spent 30 years believing I'd overcome prejudice because I made general. But you hadn't. No. I just learned how to be prejudiced from a position of power instead of powerlessness. Hayes met her eyes. The difference is my uniform already commanded respect. Yours made people question whether you belonged. Keisha was quiet for a moment. When you offered me your rank, it hurt because I'd already earned respect that no one saw. I'd bled for this country, saved lives, built intelligence networks, but I was still just the contractor to most people in that room. In Somalia, 1993, I lost half my platoon because we didn't understand the cultural dynamics. Hayes' voice grew distant. I've carried that weight for decades, but you've carried the weight of being ignored while people died from ignorance. My grandmother used to say, the wise person listens with both ears and speaks with one tongue. Keisha smiled sadly. You started listening, General. That's more than most people do. What made you trust me enough to reveal who you really were? Because you were desperate enough to ask for help, even if you asked in the worst possible way, and because I could see those peacekeepers dying if I stayed quiet. She paused. My trauma isn't more important than their lives. Hayes nodded slowly. I used to think leadership meant having all the answers. You taught me it means knowing who has them. And I learned that hiding from authority doesn't protect anyone. Sometimes you have to step forward even when it hurts. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who understood the weight of decisions that affect lives. General, can I ask you something? Anything? When you offered me your rank, did any part of you mean it, or was it purely mockery? Hayes was quiet for a long time. Honestly, it was a mockery, but maybe some part of me knew that someone in that room was more qualified than I was. I just never imagined it was the person I was dismissing. Well, Keisha said, gathering her files. Now you know, and now we make sure it never happens again. The alert came at 4:17 a.m. Red lights bathed the Pentagon Crisis Operations Center as Keisha rushed in, still pulling on her jacket. General Hayes was already there, his face grim. What do we have? Coordinated terrorist attacks planned across 5 African nations simultaneously. Martinez's voice was tight with stress. Intelligence intercepts in 6 different languages. Estimated casualties in the thousands. The main screen showed a countdown, 14 hours, 23 minutes. "Show me the intercepts," Keisha said, her voice cutting through the chaos. 6 hours of audio began playing through the speakers, voices speaking Swahili, Arabic, French, mixed with tribal dialects she recognized immediately. But something was wrong with the pattern. "Sir," reported the lead analyst, "our translation teams are overwhelmed. We've identified basic coordination between terrorist cells, but the cultural references are beyond our capabilities." Keisha listened intently, her eyes closed. After 10 minutes, she opened them. "Turn it off." The room fell silent. "This isn't what you think it is," she said quietly. Hayes leaned forward. "Explain." "These conversations aren't random coordination between terrorist groups. They're structured like traditional African epic poetry, specifically griots' storytelling patterns." "Ma'am?" Martinez looked confused. Griots are traditional storytellers who preserve history through oral epic poems. These communications are following the exact narrative structure of a traditional African epic tale. She moved to the main screen and began drawing connections between intercepts. "Here, this conversation about the lion's journey to the watering hole. In the Kenyan Kikuyu tradition, that's not about animals. It's a metaphor for political power moving toward resources." Her finger traced lines across the map. "And this discussion of when the rains come to the dry season, that's a temporal reference to specific ceremonial timing." "You're saying the entire communication network is disguised as poetry?" Hayes asked. "I'm saying it is poetry. Traditional epic poetry that contains precise tactical intelligence embedded in cultural metaphors." Keisha's voice grew more urgent. "But there's something else, something worse." She pulled up linguistic analysis software and began isolating speech patterns. "These attacks aren't designed to kill Americans or Europeans. They're designed to frame different ethnic groups against each other." The room erupted in confused voices. Hayes raised his hand for silence. "Explain." "The targets aren't random. Each attack is designed to look like it was carried out by a different ethnic group than the one actually responsible. Hausa attacking Yoruba sites in Nigeria, Kikuyu attacking Luo locations in Kenya. The goal isn't terrorism, it's ethnic warfare." Martinez pulled up target analysis. "If these attacks succeed and ethnic groups blame each other, civil wars across multiple countries simultaneously," Keisha finished. "Millions of refugees, complete regional destabilization." "Who benefits from that?" Hayes asked. Keisha studied the linguistic patterns more carefully. One voice appeared in multiple intercepts, speaking different languages with subtle accent variations. "Someone who wants to control African resources without dealing with stable governments." She enhanced the audio and played specific segments. "This voice here, he's not African. The accent patterns are wrong for native speakers of any of these languages. Foreign actors are manipulating local grievances," Hayes realized. "Exactly, and they're good. They understand deep cultural traditions well enough to hide military intelligence in poetry that most Westerners would never recognize." The countdown showed 8 hours, 15 minutes. "What do you need?" Hayes asked. "Direct contact with traditional leaders in all 5 countries. Not government officials, actual tribal elders and griot storytellers. They'll be able to decode the cultural references faster than any computer." "And if you're wrong about the ethnic framing strategy?" Keisha looked at him directly. "Then thousands die, and you can blame the woman you offered your rank to." Hayes didn't hesitate. "Make the calls." For the next 6 hours, Keisha coordinated with cultural leaders across Africa. Elder storytellers in remote villages decoded metaphorical references that revealed precise attack locations. Traditional leaders confirmed that the linguistic patterns indicated foreign manipulation of local conflicts. With 90 minutes remaining, Keisha faced the critical decision. Computer analysis suggested the main attack would target Lagos, Nigeria's economic center, but her cultural analysis indicated Abuja, the political capital. "The algorithms say Lagos," Martinez reported. "Largest population, maximum casualties, greatest economic impact." "Algorithms don't understand symbolic thinking," Keisha replied. "They're not targeting economics. They're targeting symbols of African political power to spark governmental collapse." Hayes stood behind her. The computer says Lagos. Your cultural analysis says Abuja. We have enough resources for one major preventive operation. General, you offered me your rank months ago. Today I need you to trust the authority that rank represents. Hayes looked at the countdown. 47 minutes. All units, redirect to Abuja. Full preventive deployment based on cultural intelligence analysis. The room held its breath. At 6:23 p.m. local time, as coordinated raids launched across 5 countries, the radio crackled with field reports. Alpha Team Abuja, massive attack preparation discovered. Explosives, weapons, detailed government building schematics, multiple arrests in progress. Bravo Team Lagos, secondary diversionary force neutralized as predicted. Charlie Team Nairobi, ethnic framing materials discovered. Fake identification documents designed to implicate opposing tribes. One by one, all 5 operations reported success. The cultural intelligence had been perfect. Hayes grabbed the microphone. All teams, casualty report. 0 friendly casualties. Estimated 15,000 civilian lives saved through preventive action. The room erupted in cheers. Keisha sat quietly, finally allowing herself to breathe. Hayes approached her slowly. Colonel Washington, I offered you my rank as a joke. Today you proved you deserved to outrank every person in this building. General, rank was never the point. Service was... She looked around the room at the faces watching her. Respect, gratitude, recognition. But thank you for finally seeing that I could carry the weight. The main screen displayed breaking news feeds from 5 African capitals. Coordinated terror plot prevented through international cooperation. African heads of state were already calling to thank the cultural intelligence team personally. Ma'am, Martinez said quietly, there are a lot of people who owe their lives to your analysis tonight. Keisha nodded, thinking of all the villages she couldn't save years ago. Tonight she'd save thousands. Just doing my job, Captain. The job I was always qualified to do. CNN breaking news. Pentagon contractor prevents Continental massacre. The phrase that changed everything. Within 6 hours, translate this, my rank is yours, was trending globally. The story exploded across every major network, social media platform, and international news outlet. BBC News led with the headline, From Insult to Intelligence, How a General's Cruel Challenge Saved Thousands. The 60 Minutes interview aired 3 days later. Keisha sat across from Anderson Cooper in the Pentagon's formal briefing room, the same room where her journey began. When General Hayes said, translate this, my rank is yours, what went through your mind? I thought it was the most expensive joke I'd ever heard, Keisha replied calmly. A general offering his rank to someone he assumed was beneath him. Turns out it was the most valuable recognition I'd ever received. Cooper leaned forward. But you were already a lieutenant colonel. Rank on paper doesn't mean anything if people won't see your competence. General Hayes's offer, even though it was meant as mockery, forced everyone in that room to confront what they'd been overlooking. The interview clip went viral instantly. My rank is yours became a global movement for recognizing hidden talent. 1 week later, the White House East Room was packed for an unprecedented ceremony. President Biden stood at the podium, flanked by African heads of state joining via video link. When General William Hayes said, my rank is yours, to a woman he barely noticed, he couldn't have imagined he was speaking to someone who would redefine how America engages with the world. Keisha stood in dress uniform, her lieutenant colonel insignia gleaming alongside her new Cultural Intelligence Director badge. The silver pendant her grandmother had given her caught the ceremonial lights. Today, we award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Director Keisha Washington, whose expertise prevented what intelligence agencies estimate would have been the deadliest coordinated terrorist attack in African history. The president paused, looking directly at Keisha. But this medal isn't just for preventing tragedy. It's for transforming an insult into inspiration, dismissal into recognition, prejudice into progress. The room erupted in sustained applause. In the front row, General Hayes stood with tears in his eyes. That afternoon, the African Union held a special session. President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya addressed the assembly. The woman who saved our people yesterday was offered a general's rank as a joke. Today, Africa offers her something more valuable, our eternal gratitude and recognition as a daughter of our continent. Traditional drummers played as Keisha was presented with a hand-carved staff bearing inscriptions in 12 African languages. Each inscription translated the same phrase: authority shared is authority multiplied. Social media exploded with personal stories. Hash My Rank Is Yours posts flooded platforms as millions shared experiences of being underestimated. I'm a janitor who speaks 4 languages. Today my boss asked about my background for the first time. Hash My Rank Is Yours. I'm a cafeteria worker with an engineering degree. This story gave me courage to apply for a technical position. Hash My Rank Is Yours. I'm a security guard who taught myself coding. I showed this video to my manager. Starting developer training next week. Hash My Rank Is Yours. The Pentagon announcement came 2 weeks later. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin stood before packed press galleries. Effective immediately, the Department of Defense is creating the Cultural Intelligence Corps as a full military branch. Director Washington will lead this new division with authority equivalent to 4-star general rank. The phrase, "My rank is yours," will be enshrined as the official motto of our diversity and inclusion efforts. It represents our commitment to recognizing excellence wherever it exists. The ceremony in the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes was unprecedented. Every general, admiral, and senior leader attended. The same briefing room where Keisha had been humiliated was now packed with media and military leadership. General Hayes stood at the podium, his voice strong and clear. 6 months ago, I said, "Translate this, my rank is yours," as a cruel joke. I thought I was mocking someone unworthy of authority. Today, I understand I was speaking to someone who was already more qualified for leadership than anyone in this room. He turned to Keisha. Director Washington, you didn't just earn the authority I carelessly offered. You taught us that true rank isn't about the stars you wear. It's about the light you help others shine. Keisha approached the microphone. The room fell completely silent. General Hayes offered me his rank. I'm giving him something better in return. Partnership in building an institution that recognizes excellence regardless of where it comes from. She gestured toward the audience. Every person in this room has worked with someone whose talents they didn't recognize. Someone they passed over, overlooked, or underestimated. Today we commit to changing that. The phrase, "My rank is yours," will no longer be an insult. It will be an invitation to show us capabilities we were too blind to see. The documentary Translate This premiered 3 months later, winning the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. Director Ava DuVernay's film followed Keisha's journey from dismissal to recognition, using the phrase transformation as a metaphor for systemic change. Corporate America embraced the story. Fortune 500 companies launched My Rank Is Yours programs, systematically seeking hidden talents among support staff. The consulting industry generated over $500 million, helping organizations implement inclusive talent recognition. Universities worldwide created cultural intelligence programs. The Keisha Washington Institute for Cross-Cultural Leadership at Georgetown received $100 million in funding from tech billionaires inspired by her story. Sierra Leone declared a national holiday, Recognition Day, commemorating the moment when a daughter of their diaspora saved lives through cultural knowledge. The holiday's motto, displayed on billboards across Freetown, "My rank is yours. See the hidden excellence." 1 year later, the results spoke for themselves. Asterisk, Cultural Intelligence Division prevented 47 international crises. Asterisk, Pentagon diversity increased 340%. Asterisk, international cooperation improved 85%. Asterisk, $5. $7 billion saved through cultural understanding. Asterisk, 75,000 previously overlooked federal employees identified with valuable skills. The bronze monument unveiled outside the Pentagon bore a simple inscription. Translate this, "My rank is yours," where recognition begins, where excellence is found, where authority is shared. During the dedication ceremony, General Hayes and Director Washington stood side by side as equals. The press asked Hayes if he regretted his original phrase. "No," he replied, "because sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with the most careless words. My cruelty became her catalyst. My dismissal became her platform. My rank became our partnership." Keisha smiled. Sometimes the best way to change an insult is to accept the challenge it contains. General Hayes offered me his rank. I took it, improved it, and gave it back as something better. The phrase that began as mockery had become the foundation of institutional transformation. 18 months later, Director Keisha Washington walked through the same Pentagon corridor where her journey began. But everything had changed. Her nameplate now read, Director Cultural Intelligence Corps. The bronze monument gleamed through the window. Translate this, my rank is yours, where recognition begins. She paused outside the briefing room where General Hayes had first uttered those words. Through the glass, she watched her team of 200 cultural specialists conducting a training session for newly promoted officers. The lesson topic, displayed on the main screen, How to Recognize Excellence You're Not Looking For. General Hayes joined her in the hallway. Their partnership had transformed Pentagon culture completely. Officers now competed to identify hidden talents among support staff. The ripple effect still amazes me, Hayes said. Your story inspired a cafeteria worker in Denver to reveal her biochemistry PhD. She's now developing vaccine protocols at the CDC. And the security guard in Los Angeles who spoke 6 languages became a State Department cultural attaché, Keisha added. That's what happens when people stop being invisible. Through the window, they watched the program's latest statistics. 500,000 previously overlooked capabilities identified nationwide. The Hidden Talent Initiative had become a model copied by 47 countries. That evening, Keisha faced the camera for her final message to millions of followers worldwide. 18 months ago, someone offered me their rank as an insult. I accepted it as a challenge. Today, I want to challenge every person watching this. She leaned forward, speaking directly to the audience. Right now, in your workplace, there's probably someone whose talents you've never noticed because you've never thought to look. The person cleaning your office might speak 5 languages. Your building security guard might have an engineering degree from another country. The cafeteria worker might be a brilliant programmer who just needs someone to see their potential. Here's what I want you to do this week. Find one person whose background you've never bothered to learn. Ask them about their dreams, their education, their hidden skills, not their job title, their actual capabilities. Then do something radical. Offer them an opportunity. Introduce them to someone who can help. Create a bridge between where they are and where they could be. Say to them, my platform is yours, my network is yours, my recognition is yours. Share this video with someone who needs to remember their worth. Comment below with your own, my rank is yours story. Times you were underestimated, or when you discovered someone's hidden excellence. Use #MyRankIsYours and tag someone whose capabilities deserve recognition. Let's create a movement where dismissal becomes discovery, where mockery becomes mentorship. We're launching the National Hidden Talent Database, a platform connecting overlooked experts with organizations that need their skills. Visit hiddentalentamerica.org to register your capabilities or to find the expertise your company is missing. Corporate leaders, government officials, managers at every level, we're offering free training on inclusive talent recognition. Because the next Keisha Washington might be sitting in your lobby right now, waiting for someone brave enough to see their potential. If this story opened your eyes to talent hiding in plain sight, subscribe to this channel for more stories of transformation. Hit the notification bell so you never miss someone's journey from invisible to invaluable. Share this with 3 people who have the power to recognize hidden excellence in their organizations. Together, we can make sure no one's capabilities remain buried under assumptions about who belongs where. The phrase, translate this, my rank is yours, was meant to mock someone perceived as lesser. Instead, it became a catalyst for recognizing greatness, where others saw only service workers. What if every leader, every manager, every person with influence made this promise? Show me what you can do, and my platform is yours to prove it. The next time you're tempted to overlook someone because of their job title, their appearance, or your assumptions, remember this story. Remember that extraordinary capability often comes wrapped in ordinary circumstances. Who will you choose to see tomorrow that you're not seeing today? Sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with the most careless words, but they only succeed when someone is brave enough to turn dismissal into recognition, cruelty into catalyst, mockery into mission. Don't just watch this story, become part of it. Find your hidden talent, recognize someone else's. Because the world needs every brilliant mind, regardless of the uniform they wear or the desk they sit behind. My rank is yours. Now, whose rank will you offer next?